All right, let's get right into it. This is a question that pops up in your head when you're deep down a YouTube rabbit hole at 3 in the morning. It's a classic, a real heavyweight championship debate that never gets old. Who would win in a fight, a man or a gorilla? No weapons, no tricks, just a raw, primal, one-on-one confrontation. Think about it. On one side, you have us Homo sapiens. We've built cities, we've gone to the moon, we've created podcasts. We are the undisputed champions of planet Earth, the apex predator of all apex predators. We've used our brains to conquer everything in our path, from the smallest virus to the biggest mammoth. But then you look at the other contender, the gorilla, a silverback gorilla specifically. This isn't just some monkey. This is a mountain of muscle and pure, untamed power. We're talking about an animal that's built like a tank and covered in thick hide. It's a creature of sheer genetic force, a walking, breathing testament to millions of years of evolution, shaping it for one thing: survival in the wild. When you see one of these magnificent animals in a documentary, or if you're lucky, in person, there's a part of your ancient brain that lights up with pure awe and, let's be honest, a healthy dose of fear. So the question isn't just silly, it's profound. It pits our greatest asset, our mind, against one of nature's most physically dominant creations. It's a classic battle of brain versus brawn, strategy versus strength, civilization versus the wild. People get really passionate about this. You bring it up at a party, and suddenly everyone's an expert in primatology and martial arts. The arguments fly fast and furious. A human could never win, the strength difference is insane, someone will shout. But then someone else will fire back. What about a trained fighter? A Navy SEAL? Someone who knows how to exploit weaknesses? This isn't just a hypothetical barstool debate. It forces us to look at ourselves and ask what really makes us dominant. Is it our physical prowess or something else entirely? What happens when you strip away our technology and our society? What are we at our core? This essay is going to dive deep into that very question. We're going to break down both competitors, look at the science, the stats, and the strategies. We're going to explore every angle of this incredible thought experiment. So buckle up, because we are about to stage the greatest fight that never happened. The man versus gorilla debate captures our imagination because on a deep genetic level, we are connected to these animals. Gorillas are one of our closest living relatives, sharing 98% of our DNA. When you look into a gorilla's eyes, you see a familiar intelligence. This conflict speaks to the duality of our own nature, civilized and wild. The gorilla represents that raw, untamed side of the natural world. Confronting a gorilla is like confronting our own evolutionary past. This debate is more than just a fun scenario. It's a mirror reflecting our fears and fascinations. The gorilla is the ultimate test case. Before we can even begin to analyze this epic matchup, we have to lay down some ground rules. This is crucial. You can't just throw a random person in a cage with a gorilla and call it a fair fight. That's not a fight. That's a tragedy. So for the sake of this intellectual exercise, we need to define the terms of engagement. First, let's define our combatants. We're not talking about just any gorilla. We are talking about a prime, adult male silverback gorilla. This is the leader of the troop, in his physical peak, weighing around 400 pounds of solid muscle and ready to defend his family at all costs. On the other side, we have the human. Again, we can't just pick an average person off the street. That wouldn't be a fair representation of our species' potential. Let's imagine a human who is also in their absolute prime. Think of a heavyweight MMA champion, a special forces operator, or a world-class strongman. This is a person who has dedicated their life to peak physical conditioning and combat training. They are not just strong, they are skilled, disciplined, and mentally tough. This is the best of what humanity can be in a physical confrontation. This is our champion. Now for the arena. Where does this fight take place? A natural environment like a jungle heavily favors the gorilla. It's his home turf. He knows the terrain, the obstacles, and how to use them to his advantage. A human would be at a massive disadvantage there. So, to make it as neutral as possible, let's imagine a large enclosed arena. Think of something like the octagon from the UFC, but maybe a bit bigger. It's a flat, open space with nowhere to hide. This ensures that the fight is decided by the combatant's abilities alone, not by environmental factors. Finally, and this is the most important rule, no weapons. This is a pure, primal test of physical ability. No guns, no knives, no sharp sticks. The human can't use tools, which is our species' greatest advantage. This rule is designed to make the challenge as difficult as possible for the human and to truly test the proposition of man versus beast at its most fundamental level. With these rules in place, a prime silverback against a peak human athlete in a neutral arena with no weapons, the stage is set. Now, we can finally begin to break down who has the edge. Let's look at the silverback gorilla, the undisputed king of the jungle. This is a fully grown adult male eastern lowland gorilla, the largest primate on the planet. He's the leader, the protector. The silver on his back is a sign of maturity and dominance. He carries the weight of his family's survival. The sheer presence of a silverback is intimidating. Standing around 6 feet tall, its arm span can stretch over 8 feet. A prime silverback can weigh up to 500 pounds of pure muscle. Its entire physique is a weapon. A gorilla doesn't fight by rules, it enters a state of pure primal rage. The chest beating and bluff charges are a warning. This animal is a product of millions of years of evolution. Facing a human is just another problem to be solved with overwhelming force. It deserves our absolute respect. Let's break down the hardware of a gorilla. The stats are mind-blowing. A gorilla is 4 to 9 times stronger than an average human male. That's a game-changing level of power. They can snap thick bamboo like a toothpick and bend iron bars. Their muscular arms are designed for knuckle walking, ripping, and tearing. A gorilla can deadlift around 1,800 pounds. Their entire skeletal structure is built for durability with thicker, denser bones. Their skull is a fortress. A gorilla's bite force is estimated to be around 1,300 pounds per square inch. It's literally twice as strong as a lion's and can crush bone. Their mouth is filled with giant canine teeth, purely for fighting and defense. A gorilla's skin is much thicker and tougher than human skin, covered in a dense coat of hair. Its body is designed to absorb impact from fights. A gorilla can move surprisingly fast, up to 25 miles per hour for short bursts. They are also incredibly agile climbers. It's stronger, more durable, and faster than you in a short burst, with a bite that can crush your bones. Now let's turn to our champion, Homo sapiens. It's easy to give up, but that's not the whole story. We didn't conquer this planet by being weak. Think of a prime John Jones, Georges St. Pierre, or a strongman who also happens to be a trained martial artist. This is a person who has honed their body and mind into a weapon. We are built for endurance. Our long legs, our upright posture, our ability to sweat, these are all adaptations for persistence hunting. We are the marathon runners of the animal kingdom. A trained martial artist knows exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. They target vulnerable areas: the eyes, the throat, the groin, the joints. A human fighter's entire game is about precision, about using technique to overcome a strength deficit. It's about being a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. A human fighter fights with cold, calculated precision. This mental toughness, this fight IQ, is a uniquely human weapon. Let's dive deeper into the single greatest physical advantage the human brings to this fight: endurance. This isn't just about being able to jog for a few miles. This is a fundamental part of our evolutionary design. Our bodies are masterpieces of thermoregulation. We have millions of sweat glands all over our skin, which allows us to shed heat with incredible efficiency. A gorilla, covered in thick fur and with far fewer sweat glands, would overheat very quickly in a prolonged, high-intensity struggle. Its massive muscle mass generates an enormous amount of heat, and it has no good way to get rid of it. This is a critical vulnerability. Think about how this would play out in our neutral arena. The gorilla's strategy would be to end the fight immediately, with a terrifying burst of violence. It would charge, grab, and try to bite or smash the human. The human's only chance of survival is to avoid that initial onslaught. If the human can use footwork, agility, and space to evade the gorilla's attacks and keep the fight going for more than a minute or two, the entire dynamic of the fight changes. The gorilla, used to short, decisive conflicts, would start to get tired. Its movements would become slower, its power would decrease, and its rage would turn into frustration. This is where the human's endurance becomes an offensive weapon. As the gorilla tires, windows of opportunity open up. A tired fighter makes mistakes. The human, trained to pace themselves, could begin to implement a strategy. They could use targeted attritional attacks. Think low kicks to the legs and knees. A single kick won't stop the gorilla, but dozens of them could start to break down its mobility, further frustrating and exhausting it. The human's goal is not a knockout. It's to survive the storm and then drag the gorilla into deep water where it can't swim. It's a war of attrition, and the human body is built for it. Furthermore, our upright bipedal stance gives us an advantage in movement and efficiency over long durations. Knuckle walking is powerful, but it's not as energetically efficient as walking or jogging on two legs. The human can circle, feint, and manage distance with a level of stamina that the gorilla simply cannot match. Every second the fight continues is a second that drains the gorilla's limited battery, while the human is still operating at a high capacity. This strategy is risky as hell. It requires perfect execution and incredible nerve. But it's the only path to victory, playing the long game against a short-burst powerhouse. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The primary factor in this fight is the gorilla's strength. We're talking about a completely different order of magnitude. Imagine the strongest person you know. Now multiply their strength by 6. This is functional, terrifying power. A gorilla can rip, tear, and crush with its bare hands. It's a full-body phenomenon. When a silverback charges, it's launching 400 pounds of fury at you. Its primary weapon is overwhelming brute force. It can grab a human limb and snap it. There's no clever reversal when an opponent has the power to literally tear you apart. This raw, genetic power is the biggest mountain the human champion has to climb. How does skill overcome a power deficit that large? But then, the gorilla connects. The fight could be over right there. The gorilla is immensely strong, but skill is the human's equalizer. A trained fighter is a student of combat. They know the body's weaknesses and how to exploit them. Understanding leverage and timing is key. The human wouldn't match strength with strength. They'd use movement and intelligence to avoid power, targeting vulnerable areas like the eyes and throat. Fight IQ becomes critical. The human can think ahead, creating patterns. A gorilla charges with aggression. The human can use that against it, redirecting force. Victory isn't about a knockout. It's about 1,000 tiny cuts, staying safe and methodically breaking the gorilla down. It's patience and precision against rage and power. The human is the matador, the gorilla is the bull, bleeding the bull's strength little by little. Let's talk about speed. Both combatants have a different kind of speed, and how they match up is critical. The gorilla has terrifying explosive speed. From a standstill, it can launch itself forward in the blink of an eye. The human possesses sustained agility and superior footwork. Our peak athlete can move consistently for a much longer period. The fight becomes a battle of space management. The human needs to keep the fight in open space. So who has the edge? It depends on the phase of the fight. In the first 30 seconds, the gorilla has a massive advantage. But if the human can survive that opening blitz, the advantage starts to shift. The real question: can a human actually hurt a gorilla? The gorilla's body is built like armor, thick hide, dense bones, and muscle. Forget knockouts, a punch won't faze it. The human must target weak points: eyes, groin, joints. Precision strikes, not brute force, are the only hope. A jab to the eye, a kick to the knee, anything to disrupt or disable. It's a war of attrition. Death by 1,000 cuts, not a single blow. The human's only chance is to survive long enough to inflict enough pain to slow the beast before it lands a fight-ending strike. The human brain is our true weapon. In a fight, it's not just about muscle. It's about strategy, adaptation, and problem-solving under pressure. While the gorilla reacts, the human plans, analyzes, and adjusts in real time. This mental edge is our only real hope, the ability to see a path to victory and execute it. Intelligence can overcome brute force, if the human can keep their head. In this arena, it's mind versus muscle, and the outcome hinges on the power of thought. Don't underestimate the gorilla's intelligence. Gorillas solve problems, use tools, and learn from experience. In a fight, they recognize patterns and adapt, just not with human-style strategy. Their intelligence is practical, honed for survival and physical conflict. The gorilla is a thinking, feeling opponent, capable of surprise and frustration. Ignoring its mind is a fatal mistake. Humans are tool users by nature even without weapons. Our brains look for advantages. We analyze, improvise, and use our bodies as tools leveraging physics and technique. Martial arts themselves are a form of tool use, turning the body into a weapon. Taking away weapons is a massive handicap, but the human mind still seeks creative solutions. The fight becomes about using every ounce of intellect and ingenuity. Even unarmed, our superpower is thinking like an engineer in the heat of battle. The real fight is psychological. The gorilla attacks with primal rage, overwhelming, relentless, but exhausting. The human must stay calm, detached, and strategic, weathering the storm and waiting for mistakes. If the human survives the initial onslaught, frustration can make the gorilla sloppy. The battle shifts from brute force to mental endurance. The winner is the one who imposes their timeline, quick destruction or drawn-out attrition. Can the human's mind keep their body safe long enough to win? History is full of man versus beast battles. Think Roman gladiators versus lions and bears. Those fighters had weapons, armor, and teamwork, yet many still died. Take away the tools, and the odds plummet. Our scenario is even more primal, pure human versus raw animal power. The Colosseum's legacy shows our fascination with this struggle and our dependence on tools for victory. Without them, it's a test of pure courage, skill, and ingenuity against nature's fury. The outcome? A stark reminder of just how much we rely on our inventions to survive. When we look into myth and legend, the stakes get even higher. Every culture has its stories of a great hero facing a monstrous beast. Think of Heracles, who had to slay the Nemean lion, a beast whose hide was impenetrable. Heracles had to abandon his weapons and rely on his own wits and immense strength to choke the life out of the beast. Another example is Beowulf, who decides to face the monster Grendel unarmed. These myths show us what we believe is possible for the ideal human champion. They win by combining their physical gifts with their mental fortitude, finding a way to overcome seemingly invincible opponents. These stories are a blueprint for human victory against overwhelming odds. All right, let's move away from myths and arenas and get into the real modern world. What happens when an ordinary person, not a trained fighter or a demigod, has a real-life encounter with a massive, powerful animal? These stories are terrifying, but they are also incredibly instructive. They show us what happens when the thought experiment becomes a brutal reality. There are numerous documented cases of people being attacked by bears, which are a pretty good stand-in for a gorilla in terms of size, strength, and raw power. These encounters almost always end badly for the human. When you read survivor accounts, a few things become clear. First is the shocking speed and violence of the attack. People who survive a bear mauling often say they had no time to react. 1 second things are calm, the next they are being overwhelmed by a force of nature. The other common theme is the feeling of complete helplessness. A full-grown grizzly bear can toss a human around like a rag doll. People describe being hit with a power that is impossible to resist, a strength that simply shuts down any attempt to fight back. Their survival often comes down to pure luck or playing dead, not winning the fight. However, there are rare stories of people fighting back and surviving. Take the case of Wes Perkins in Alaska, who was mauled by a grizzly and somehow survived. He fought back, but what saved him was the timely arrival of his friends who shot the bear. Another famous story is that of Hugh Glass, the frontiersman portrayed in the movie The Revenant. He was mauled by a grizzly, left for dead, and managed to survive and crawl his way back to civilization. But here's the key: he didn't win the fight. He survived it. The bear won the physical confrontation, and Glass was only able to live because of his incredible toughness and will to survive after the fight was over. These real-world encounters paint a sobering picture. They show that the gorilla's raw power is not something to be taken lightly. In a real confrontation, the animal's strength is almost always the deciding factor. The human is immediately put on the defensive, and their goal shifts from winning to simply surviving. These stories highlight the massive gap between a controlled, hypothetical arena fight and the chaotic, terrifying reality of a wild animal attack. They serve as a powerful argument for the gorilla, showing that when the cage door opens for real, humanity's confidence can be shattered in an instant by the brutal laws of nature. We can't talk about this epic showdown without looking at how it's been portrayed in pop culture, because these stories shape how we think about the conflict. The ultimate example, the king of all man versus ape stories, is King Kong. From the 1933 classic to the modern blockbusters, the story taps into this primal fascination. Kong is the ultimate silverback. He's nature's power made manifest, huge, strong, and untamable. And what do the humans in the story do? They don't try to fight him one-on-one. That would be suicide, and the movies know it. Instead, they use their ultimate weapon technology. In every King Kong movie, the dynamic is the same. Kong easily defeats any physical threat, whether it's dinosaurs or other giant monsters. He is the king of the physical world. The humans, who are tiny and fragile in comparison, can only subdue him with gas bombs, giant nets, and ultimately with airplanes and machine guns. The story of King Kong is a powerful admission on our part. It's a cultural acknowledgement that in a fair physical fight, we lose. We only win by cheating, by using our brains to create tools that can bridge the massive power gap. The tragic ending with Kong falling from the Empire State Building is the ultimate symbol of this. This theme is everywhere. Think about Planet of the Apes. The entire premise is a reversal of the power dynamic. In that world, the apes are intelligent and organized, and humans are the mute, primitive beasts. The story is a cautionary tale, asking what would happen if another species had our level of intelligence combined with superior physical strength. The answer is terrifying. We would be subjugated. We would be the ones in cages. These movies play on our deep-seated fear that our intelligence is the only thing keeping us at the top of the food chain, and that if that advantage were ever lost, we'd be in serious trouble. So, what does Hollywood tell us about who would win? It overwhelmingly votes for the gorilla. On screen, the only way the human hero ever stands a chance is by outsmarting the beast or by using advanced technology. From King Kong to Caesar in Planet of the Apes, pop culture consistently portrays the great apes as physically supreme. These stories serve as a constant reminder of our own physical limitations. They reinforce the idea that our strength lies not in our muscles, but in our minds and our ability to build things. In the cinematic world, the man versus gorilla fight is no contest. It's a showcase for the gorilla's power. Alright, let's run the simulation. The bell rings, the steel door clangs shut. Our fighter and the silverback are in the arena. The human circles, trying to read the animal. The gorilla assesses the threat. Its eyes lock on the man. It decides the human is a threat. It beats its chest. It's a declaration of war. The gorilla explodes forward. It covers the distance in seconds. The human is caught. The impact is catastrophic. The human is slammed into the ground. The fight ends in the first 5 seconds. The gorilla can just grab and crush. The fight is over. But what if the human survives that initial blitz? Let's run the simulation again. The gorilla charges, but this time the human is ready. His entire game plan is built around surviving the first 30 seconds. He uses pure lateral movement, forcing the gorilla to change direction. He's making the gorilla waste its precious energy. The first few minutes are pure terror as the human avoids the gorilla's attacks. The gorilla is getting frustrated, its roars turning into gasps for air. The gorilla's massive body is overheating. The tide is beginning to turn. Now the human starts to fight back with a death-by-a-thousand-cut strategy. He's a matador, methodically planting his spears. The human is operating on a full tank of endurance. This is the narrow, treacherous path to human victory. We've seen the most likely outcomes, but a real fight is never that clean. There are always wild cards, unpredictable X factors that can change everything in an instant. What if our human fighter is also one of the strongest men on the planet? Think of a guy like Hafthor Bjornsson. Then there's the gorilla's mindset. What if it's not in a state of pure, murderous rage? It might not be fighting to the death. What about the human's pain tolerance and mental state? A trained fighter has a mindset that is almost inhuman. Ultimately, these wildcards show us that the fight is more than just a simple equation of strength versus skill. These variables are what make a real fight so unpredictable. After breaking down the muscle, the mind, and the myths, who wins? It depends on the first 10 seconds. If the gorilla closes the distance, the fight is over. Its power is too overwhelming for any human. But if the human survives, a narrow path to victory emerges. He must turn the fight into a marathon, death by 1,000 cuts. It's a victory of the brain over brawn. The gorilla is the champion of force, the human of persistence and intellect. So in a way, both can win. The physical disparity is a mountain too high for the human to climb most of the time. The gorilla may win the fight, but the human wins the argument. This question, man versus gorilla, is one we're never going to stop asking. And that's a good thing. It forces us to look in the mirror and ask fundamental questions about ourselves. What are we without our technology? What are our real strengths and weaknesses? When you seriously consider what a gorilla is capable of, you can't help but be in awe. This discussion leads to a greater appreciation for wildlife and the incredible diversity of life on our planet. Everyone brings their own perspective, their own knowledge, and their own imagination to the table. So I want to leave it with you. What do you think? It's about exploring the very nature of what it means to be human and what it means to be wild. It's a story about ourselves, and that's a story that will never get old.